If there's some extra background noise in this video, it's because the window behind the camera is open. My sweet little girl Momo is in her basket looking out her window, having a joyous little time, and I feel too bad about closing the window on her. We should be fine as long as there are no assholes on their dirt bikes driving by. We might hear a train. So I already tried to record this video last night, and every like take I was doing just was turning out so fucking horrible. I'm gonna have to record in the morning. Like, I was having the most frustrating time trying to record last night. I am sympathizing with Pearl today. The day that I am recording this, I am sympathizing with Pearl so hard because I am exhausted. I had a cute little costume to wear for the entirety of the review. I'm not feeling it, but even then, I was so uncomfortable in it because, like, the overalls are very old. I'm just working with what's coming out of my closet. And I don't know, last night I couldn't focus or anything. Momo, and listen, I also have this paragraph of like a hook to put at the beginning of this, but no, you know what? Let's embrace the Pearl mood. I've had a fucking shitty ass day. My entire day has been spent in my car screaming on the road. And it wasn't a good evening trying to record this last night. So instead of a hook introduction, this is me being real with my audience. I had a cute costume planned. I'm fucking tired. But I am dedicated to getting this video out on time. It's been a bad day, but I'm so fucking ready to talk about Pearl. Am I staring too intently into the camera? Hello and welcome back, my dear viewers. I've decided I want to call you guys something, and I was going to let you guys have a decision, but I was playing with like little nicknames myself, and I've just decided for you. You guys are my sweet little blobby eldritch horror. You're my little blobs. You're my sweet little horrible blobs, my blob monsters. I think I already spoiled it, but hi, I'm Starguts, and this week I've decided to watch a movie that people have been just absolutely rabid over since it came out, Pearl. And listen, I'm just gonna go ahead and give you a forewarning. I have not seen any of T. West's other movies. This is the first one that I have seen. And when I was writing my script and notes and all of that, I was getting very fucking confused. I thought that Infinity Pool was part of like the franchise. It's not. It's not even a T. West movie. I guess it just had the same vibe as the other movies. And like, was that intentional? Was anyone else like fooled when it came out? Or am I just stupid? I haven't seen any of the other movies, and I've always known that I was going to watch these movies to review them either on the blog or I guess now in video form, because people are much more visual digesters. Why did I fuck that word up? Digesters. And my intention was that I was going to watch them in the order that they came out in. However, I don't know. This week, I got this bug under my skin, and I wanted to see what the hype behind Pearl was about. I have friends who were fucking obsessed with this movie. I see people, I mean, the most exposure that I've had to it is on TikTok. And through TikTok, just the way that people have discussed it so far, I think there was one thing that I was expecting, but when I watched, every single time, there's a very different perspective that I agree with the popular perspective. Let me start with that. I see the initial intention, I think is the words I'm looking for. I see the intentional intentions behind Pearl. But when I watched it, there's this whole other perspective that I don't or at least that I didn't see a whole lot of people talking about when I went to read like comments, reviews, whatever on the movie. It seems like most people have an opposing point of view. But listen, if all movie reviews or movie discussions were just an echo chamber, then the discussions wouldn't be fucking fun or interesting. So guess what? I'm gonna be looking at Pearl through a different point of view. However, I am getting way too ahead of myself right here. I'm getting too excited to talk about Pearl. This has now become the highlight of my day, recording this video. But because I have a different perspective that I saw when watching this movie, it has me a little bit worried. However, I'm prepared to stand out from the crowd with this opinion. I don't know, perspective. I just saw I saw a different narrative happening in it. There are like two narratives happening at the same time, kind of. And there's so much evidence for the narrative that I saw that there's no way it wasn't intentional. Like, I don't know. That's how I feel. We'll get into it. Shut the fuck up. We are still in the introduction, my guy. Okay. I have a lot of things to say about Pearl. And before we get into it, we need to discuss what Pearl is about. So if you're new here, hi, I'm Starguts. My reviews kind of tend to be more of like discussions on moments that I feel are prominent within the film or have like something specific to say. Rather than like focusing on every little detail or whatever. I refrain from spoiling too much, but there will be spoilers because I will be going into like scenes in detail as they pertain to the conversation that I'm having. If you're interested in watching Pearl before the rest of this review, like if you haven't seen it yet, it is currently, at the time of recording this, it is streaming on Paramount Plus. It very frequently changes where it is streaming at because just last week, I swear to you, it was still on Prime. And I have seen it jump around between like 4 or 5 different streaming platforms. It's an A24 film, so it's never going to be on Tubi. Rental prices on Amazon and YouTube are about $4. I know you guys have other methods of watching films. I don't think I'm allowed to condone that. But you know what? What is that, Momo? Momo, did you say that you have a dance? Momo, do you have a dance to share with the audience? Well, go ahead, show us your dance. That was incredible, Momo, but that was not enough X Factor. I'm sorry. Pearl is a 2022 psychological horror film directed by T. West and is the prequel to the film X, which came out the same year. That was so surprising when I started researching for the script, is that they came out the same year. I guess as they were filming X, Goth and West, they decided that this one character might be popular and they created a backstory for her. And that's what Pearl is. And they got it done in the same fucking year. That is wild, dude. That's crazy. While this film is a origin story of Mia Goth's character in X, I think, it's more than effective as just a standalone by itself film, like with no knowledge of the rest of the series. That's how I felt with, not having watched X or Maxine. I don't know if Maxine's gonna, I don't know. And here's a misconception that I had as an outsider as well. I didn't know that Pearl was her own character in X. Like, I thought Pearl turns into Maxine. Like, that's her persona that she changes into. No, Pearl is a character in X. I was really confuffled about that. So I'm gonna keep X out of my mouth entirely during this. Well, not entirely. I think there's one moment where I very loosely mention it, just as a side note. I will watch it, and when I watch it, it's more than likely gonna be reviewed on the channel. So if you're interested in that, maybe consider subscribing. Hey Stargates, can we stop fucking around and get to the synopsis part of this? What is Pearl about? You've been stuck on this. Sure, Jan. The narrative follows a young farm girl named Pearl who wants something more from life than being stuck on a farm and turning into her mother. My cat's it's starting to get dark, so I had to bring out a light to help me. And I had to stop recording right in the middle of finally getting to the synopsis because my cats broke the screen in the living room window. And now kitties do not get window time because there is no screen. Let's try this again. The narrative follows a young farm girl named Pearl who wants something more out of her life than just being stuck on a farm and possibly turning into her mother. But this isn't the only issue that she's facing, as she's also struggling with the upkeep of her ill father. She has to keep herself safe from the influenza outbreak, and she is also suffering from some loneliness of her husband being away at war. Pearl's only solace becomes sneaking to the movie theater and watching dancers perform. Pearl has dreams of stardom and adoring fans. She wants to be like the pretty girls in the pictures. Not only does she want this, she believes she deserves this, and she was never meant to be a plain Jane. She was born to be great. As Pearl's mental state slowly deteriorates, she begins destroying any and everything standing in the way between her and fame. But when her one chance at stardom gets shot down, she must return home and lay in the bed she's made, lonelier than ever and desperate for the life she once had back. If you've seen this movie, you know this is kind of a vague breakdown of what actually is going on. It's just, there's so much in this movie that I wasn't expecting to happen. And so much that, like, if I went through everything, we would be here all day. So what was I expecting from Pearl? You hear the train in the background? I told you it was gonna happen. Anything else? No, they're done. As I said, the only exposure that I had ever had to it was the audios. So all I knew was, I'm gonna be a star. Nothing's gonna keep me on this farm. I was familiar with her little dance in the red dress. And I knew her, like, scene with the love interest where she's like, what's wrong with me? Why did you change your mind? That scene. Those were all of the Pearl scenes that I was familiar with before going into this. And so when you look at those TikToks, you see a lot of, like, girl power. There's this big, like, Pearl is seeking revenge. And I think it could be argued still. It's just, listen, okay, I just have a different perspective, and I think it's gonna upset some people, but I gotta be me. Nah, yeah. I'm gonna do my own thing. So a lot of what I've seen about Pearl has to do with her freedom and her power. And because of that, I thought this was going to be like a very revenge-focused film. Like I said, you could probably argue that. And I'm not sure if many people are going to like what I have to say. But let's remember that film is subjective. But also, I practice death of the author. If you're unfamiliar with the death of the author, it's kind of like this philosophy. I learned it in, like, my literary theory classes, where once a piece of work is publicized, it doesn't matter what the author's intentions behind it were. Rather, what's important is what the audience gains or interprets from it themselves. And listen, after watching Pearl a few times, and I have evidence from the movie to support my claims, I feel very confident in sharing this kind of opposing opinion. So, because I thought it had to do with this, like, revenge narrative, I was expecting Pearl to have some kind of tragic backstory, like, where she's constantly been dealt shit from people. I had heard people mention, like, her having an abusive home life, and that the other characters would just do something to fuck Pearl over, and then that justifies her murderous rampage. But in my viewing experience, this wasn't really the case that Pearl got screwed over. I don't think she got screwed over that much. She kind of seemed like she was the one doing the screwing over. And I was really shocked to find that all of these characters that she killed, none of them, I don't think any of them deserved it. None of them did something to her to really deserve it. I'm sorry if you disagree with me, because I know the first thought is the mother. Most of this conversation is going to be about the mother, trust me. Just not in the way that you think it might. You guys, the biggest shocker for me was the projectionist. I went into this movie not knowing jack shit about him other than Pearl's scene. I was prepared to hate the fuck out of this man. I was prepared to see him die. I didn't know anything about him. I already knew he deserved it, right? And then once I started watching the movie and the way that he's introduced to Pearl and how he calls himself a fucking bohemian. Oh my god. Disgusting, dude. Only douchebags. All bohemians are douchebags.
I'm what more civilized people refer to as bohemian.
So, I was so ready to fucking hate this man. And to my astonishment, I think he was justified for leaving that situation.
If only they would just die.
Pardon?
Nothing.
I was ready for him to be using Pearl for her love, for sex, whatever. And then because, you know, he can just get up and move away, that's what he would do to her. And she would get angry because he used her. And then, you know, he must die for his crimes.
You stand convicted of assholism.
But once he rolled up to her house and all of those events leading up to his decision that, like, hey, maybe I should get out. Maybe this isn't a safe space. The rotten pig on the porch, the drooling father in a wheelchair that, first of all, he's not expecting to meet, and then immediately upon meeting him, your girlfriend is like, let's go upstairs and fuck.
Want to go up to my bedroom now?
Ma'am, all I can think about, if I were in this exact same situation, if I were the projectionist and the other person was like a man, nay, if it was still another female, and that's, I came to visit your house for the first time, and those are all of the things in a row that I'm experiencing, what do you mean? I'd be fucking gone. It's obvious there is something mentally unwell with Pearl, and the film doesn't hide it. It introduces you to the fact that, hey, here is this like playbook opening to the movie that's so sweet and reminds you of Wizard the Oz.
What are you doing in here, Mr. Goose?
Immediately, Pearl is crazy. And then later on, when she's admitting to those things, feeling good. Class, let me ask you something. What is one of the first signs for a parent that their child might become a serial killer? That's right, killing small animals. So the only really like scummy, shitty thing that I found about the projectionist was him showing Pearl porn. But listen, I'm not really going to hold any weight to this because I haven't seen X. And the only thing that I know about X is that it has to do with porn. So I don't know, this might have some kind of significance or callback to X. So I thought it was weird. It might not be. Pearl obviously has some kind of inclination towards sex. And you saw her eyebrow twitch. It kind of seemed like it piqued her interest. It seemed like maybe she didn't mind. So it was fine, probably, right? I'm just pointing it out because if I was going to see a guy who I liked and I show up to his place and he's like, you like movies, right? Check this out. And he turned on porn. I would laugh in his face and leave. And Pearl killing her father is one of the coldest kills, not even of the film, but of film in general that I've seen. Like, that is a cold, chilling scene. She is so nonchalant about the fact that she's about to kill her father for kind of no reason.
You are loved.
She's just like, I know you'll be looking down on me all proud. You're gonna look down for me from heaven. You're gonna be like, I'm a Pearl. Why kill? I mean, I guess in her mind, the mother's not there to take care of him. And she sure as hell doesn't plan to take care of him. So he must die. But Pearl, did you know that, like, no one had to die for you to achieve your dream? Anyway, the character that I ended up feeling the most sympathy for was Ruth, the mother. Holy shit, Ruth is such an incredible character. I don't know. There were a lot of moments where she did remind me of, Annie in Hereditary. Tony, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Colette? Especially, like, her monologue. We're gonna be getting into it, okay? Most of my discussion has to do with the mother's perspective. She's meant to be the film's antagonist. I don't really see her as an antagonist. People are gonna hate me. I think she's completely reasonable in this movie. Her character also is just incredible. Yeah, she keeps Pearl from stardom and from chasing her dreams, and there's nothing wrong with chasing your dreams. But listen, that mama did not tell a single fucking lie the entire film. She said nothing but the truth. And if you're upset by it, hard pill to swallow. I don't know. Now that I have rustled a little bit of feathers, before I go too far into discussing the mother, I want to make it clear that I know what the popular interpretation or opinion of this movie is, what everyone else gets from it, and I do still agree with that. I'm not saying that that is not a valid interpretation or reading of this film, right? There's room for other, come on, there's room for other perspectives, other points of view that also create more of a discussion around the narrative, and like, we can just start putting like more theory behind everything that's happening in it. And I think looking at the mom's perspective is really interesting, and I don't know, I feel like when you look at it from the mom's perspective, it makes the film much scarier. But listen, I just want to preface this section with a disclaimer that I love Pearl's character. I sympathize with Pearl's character. At the beginning of this, I told you, I feel like Pearl today. I am about to lose it. And this video is still going to discuss some of the ways that she's been wronged or abused. We are going to go through it. But like I said at the beginning, if all discussions around movies were just an echo chamber of agreeing on the same exact things and only looking at it from one point of view or one angle of vision, it wouldn't be that interesting. Let's make things interesting, man. Let's sympathize with the mother's perspective. And by doing that, we are going to have to acknowledge that Pearl is very selfish and self-serving. This mother character, I think she carries a lot of weight in this movie. Her role is very strong, but the character itself, there's a lot of weight on her shoulders. And haven't seen, in the little bit that I've seen of other people's opinions, I just haven't seen anybody acknowledge how fucking hard the mom has it. The majority that I've seen on the discussion of the mother is her abuse towards Pearl, of her being abusive mentally and physically. I don't know how much evidence there is for mentally. Physically, she just slapped her once. So And there was no suggestion that she had ever done it before. Every single time that I have watched this movie, I have felt more strongly about my perspective and opinion on the mother's narrative. I have seen a few people criticize how she was keeping Pearl isolated. Were you paying attention? It was a pandemic going on. They were quarantining. She wasn't keeping Pearl isolated. They were Do you remember COVID?
It's hard to know who anyone is nowadays with all these masks people are wearing.
Ruth was trying to keep the family from getting more sick because the father's already sick. And bringing that home could kill the father and all of them. Then I saw people complain about her taking away Pearl's dinner because she ate candy. And I saw a few people think that Pearl literally ate candy. Obviously that was a lie. She used the money to go to the movies. She didn't eat anything, which to some people's argument would make the situation worse. But okay, she took away dinner, but Pearl took the very little money that they had to go see a movie.
Wir haben hier nicht viel Geld, uns zu ernähren. Die Zeiten haben sich geändert, Pearl. Du darfst nicht so leichtsinnig sein.
I mean, what's worse? And I find it very important to point out this detail because I don't think a lot of people realize it, and I didn't realize it until the second time that I watched this, that Ruth is being discriminated against. She is being heavily discriminated against and isolated by their neighbors because it's World War I and she is German in America.
Du siehst, wie deutsche Bauern hier behandelt werden. Der einzige Grund, warum wir nicht krank oder am Verhungern sind, ist, weil wir achtsam leben.
Ruth is in full survival mode, my guy. Their farm isn't doing well because she's German, so they aren't making as much money. And the only vulnerable time that she has is late at night by herself. I'm sorry, how can you observe and listen to what she's saying about the world, what's happening around them, see her crying by herself late at night? I'm sorry, how can you see that and not realize how strong she is? She's trying to remain for her family. And I think to some people this, which, she's German, could have something to do with like different cultural understandings. Does that make sense? But I think to some people this comes across as being like a really bad, mean-spirited person, but she's not trying to be. She's trying to help her family fucking survive. Other people have mentioned how Ruth is mean and she's crushing her daughter's dreams. Like she should be supporting her daughter instead. And you know what? In the 21st century, we can do that. Sometimes we can do that, right? It's 1918 during a war and during a flu. People say that because she's holding her daughter back, she is being wrong and selfish. I don't know. To me, there's shit happening in the world right now, Pearl. And on top of that, Ruth is having to deal with Pearl's escapism fantasies, not wanting to help out with the housework or taking care of things. But on top of no money, on top of sick husband, on top of the discrimination and the pandemic, on top of all of that, she's also has a daughter who is killing the farm animals. Oh, and also tried to feed her husband to an alligator. I'm sorry.
Pearl? What are you doing?
Talking with Daddy.
Ruth caught Pearl in the act of Pearl trying to kill Ruth's husband. Because I think a lot of people only call him Pearl's father. Because, Pearl is the main character. But Look at that scene and try to see it from Ruth's fucking perspective. She's catching her psycho daughter in the act of trying to kill her husband. How would you feel? Can I ask you that? How would you feel? Because I, for one, would be losing my fucking mind. And the attempted murder is for her dreams. You don't gotta kill people to go be a dancer. Just leave your family. When you argue about, like, I don't know, just a lot of the things that Ruth said to Pearl, they just sounded fair to me. I don't know, they're stern, yeah, and maybe sometimes, I don't know. I don't even know if I would call it harsh sometimes. It wasn't really harsh until she reached her breaking point with that phenomenal monologue. That was such a good monologue. Like, I was screaming. I'm not sure if I can trust people who have watched Pearl and don't at the very least understand the mother's perspective here. Again, I don't think she did anything out of line with Pearl. There was nothing out of line that I feel like I saw. I know the common narrative when we talk about Pearl is the abuse, but I don't know. I guess maybe also I didn't study a lot of the abuse theories. I didn't study a lot of I'm just telling you my viewing experience. That's not the vibe that I was getting. You don't have to like the mother, but acknowledge that she has to go through so much bullshit in this movie. And so much more. I feel like she is going through a lot more labor and work and strife than Pearl really is. Ruth is the only character with evidence of having a difficult or hard life full of struggle. Like, we hear Pearl say that her life is like that, but in the times that I've watched it, I just can't really find evidence to support that claim in the movie. And because we don't know what happened before the movie, we don't know. Like, we're just taking Pearl's word for it when she says it. Ruth is constantly shown doing dirty and manual labor, while Pearl is gallivanting. And sometimes we see her milking a cow or putting corn in a pot. And then I've seen like a few comment people in like other posts mention her having to feed her father. I don't really hold a whole lot of weight to that being like a struggle. Hi, this is me recording the day after when I've had a fourth rewatching after recording clips, and I wanted to interject this here. I want to retract what I said about Pearl sounding like she was talking about her having a physically hard life in her monologue. Because when I was recording clips for the video last night and I was watching her monologue for a fourth time, I think I just misunderstood some things that she was saying. And I want to retract that statement. I think it really does sound like she is mostly focusing on her mental struggle, which I do agree she struggles very much with, and we'll get into that shortly. Now, this is not to say that Pearl doesn't suffer at all. Pearl does suffer. However, it's just in a really different way than her mother. Her mother is suffering in a way that she's doing a lot of really hard labor. Some of it is like emotional labor of having to now be the caregiver of someone who's supposed to be her husband. Like, that really tugged at my heart. It's just Pearl isn't suffering in the same physically draining and thankless job kind of work that Ruth is. And to then do all of this work to try and help your family survive and stay healthy, and for your daughter to look you in the face and say, "I don't want to be like you." I'm sorry. Ruth's justified. I like Ruth. Ruth's whole monologue is so justified. And listen, here's a little detail. That I noticed. I cannot help but highlight the fact that before the flu and war, I don't think Pearl was used to doing any work at all. here's why I think that. I can't remember what they call them exactly. Is it house hands? I think they might use the term house hands in the film. But Ruth mentions that they had house hands. They lost their house hands to the flu, I think. Not to the flu, I'm sorry. There's a moment where Ruth mentions that they used to have house hands, like servants, to help them around the house and around the farm.
With all the farm hands gone, I can't do everything around here myself.
The reason for her stating this is that we don't have house hands anymore, so Pearl, you have to pick up the extra work. And the house hand conversation comes up more than once, because in Pearl's monologue, when she's talking about Howard, she discusses how he came to live with her as a house hand.
I may be a poor farm girl, Howard, but I'm not stupid. I spotted you the moment you came to live with us. You worked hard, like the other farmhands, but you were different.
It's not just a house hand, you guys. It is a 24/7 live-in servant. And who knows how many of them that they used to have. So let's start putting those pieces together. They were before flu and war. Obviously, the flu and war has caused some extra strife on them. Before the flu and war, this family was wealthy enough to have a presumably successful farm, probably more successful because they didn't care that they were German. Now they care that they're German. So it was successful enough to have house hands, servants. And we don't know how many were live-in, but there were some. You guys, they had money. And Pearl probably grew up doing jack squat on that farm. It's the next day. If you're new here, I frequently have to stop right in the middle of my recording because my camera battery dies and pick it back up the next day. So that's where we are. Because it was late at night and the camera battery needed to be charged. Again, listen, my next purchase for this channel is going to be more camera or more battery packs for the camera. So last night, to still stay productive on this video, I decided to record. I recorded the clips from Pearl. Very tongue-tied right now. I recorded some clips from Pearl that I'm going to use for the video, and so as such it kind of gave me a little bit of a fourth rewatching, and there's some more things pertaining to the topics I've already discussed that I kind of want to include. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is that I did find on this fourth rewatching I tried to force myself to look at it more from Pearl's perspective, and I did find a few things that the mother said that were harsh. Again, I don't think she crossed any boundaries. I just think, you know, man, that is kind of a shitty thing to say. And the one that really stuck out to me is her calling Pearl weak. She especially specifically does call Pearl weak for having dreams. Having a dream or like wanting something different in your life, or, you know, having fantasies doesn't make you weak. And she was really harsh about the point of Pearl being weak. However, it does seem like being weak is the one and only thing Pearl proves her mother wrong about. Again, I haven't seen X, so I don't know if Pearl somehow gets recognition or fame like later on in her life after Pearl ends. But at least with this film, it seems like the only thing Pearl is able to prove her mom wrong about is the fact that she's not weak. At least she's not physically weak. Also, I know right before my battery died yesterday, I was talking about the house hands, but I was also talking about how Pearl is murdering Ruth's husband. Ruth catches her daughter wanting to kill her husband. But it sent a chill down my spine last night because I noticed it in the other rewatches, but I think because I had just been talking about it, it was more prominent in my mind that, like, Pearl lies and manipulates a lot in the film. In fact, it seems like she's the only character that lies, unless you want to include the people lying to her that they're not afraid of her, like the projectionist and Mitzi, I guess technically they're lying to her just to save their own skin, which doesn't work. But Pearl is the only character that constantly tells lies.
And maybe that is what you wish for me.
If only they would just die.
Of course not.
If only they would just die.
Stop lying!
I love you, Daddy, but this is no way to live.
Pearl? What are you doing?
Talking with Daddy.
We need to get him back to the house.
Why do you hate me, Mama?
So frequently in comments, another argument that I see about Pearl is that the only reason she wasn't chosen for the dance group is because she wasn't young and blonde. I don't think the judges actually cared about that, because here's the thing. When you look at the lineup of girls, Mitzi is the only blonde girl auditioning, and she didn't get the part. Mitzi is the only blonde girl auditioning, and she didn't get the part. The judges didn't care that Pearl wasn't blonde, which also begs the question of, man, I'm gonna mention it later again, but there's a discussion to be had about how reliable of a narrator Pearl is, and I don't have time to like cover that big of a topic in this video. That would be something that really deserves its own video. It makes you question like what was her dance actually, because like the coloring and lighting and sudden like change of mood right when she begins her dance feels the same way as all of her fantasy scenes. I can't get into it in this video. Like, we have too much. I still have shit that I haven't gotten done in the script, my guy. These are just additional comments for my fourth watching. And I also wanted to point out the fact that at the end of the film, it does feel like there's some kind of resolve between Pearl and Ruth. It's like Pearl realizes she was wrong, and when Ruth's ghost appears to us again, because it's been shown to us like a few times before as the haunting corpse, but this time she's not a haunting corpse. She's just the full warm, well, some people are going to debate my description of warm. She's at least warm in this moment, come on. The warm mother that she used to be. It's like there is some kind of resolve between the two. Okay, those are my notes. With that out of the way, let's get back into what I had planned. And I think the last thing I was talking about was the house hands and servants. Now, we don't know exactly how many they had or anything, but I think the last thing I said was that Pearl probably didn't do anything on that farm, more than likely, if they had house hands. Again, we don't know the events that happened before the film, and they don't really, the characters don't give us a clear picture of what happens before the film, what life was like before the flu and war. So we can't say that for certain, but, and I mean, you can kind of see that in her behavior. She's very like, I think I've used the word gallivanting already, but she gallivants a lot. She reminds me a lot of Dorothy, and if I had to guess, she's a sweet girl who has good intentions, but she's skipping around the farm and getting in everyone's fucking way. That's my take. That's how I think life was like before. Am I old? Is it... do I have this perspective because I'm like old now? Ruth is not a bad guy in this movie, and there's nothing you could say to change my mind. But Pearl, I think Pearl is absolutely the bad guy, and I think there are little details throughout that kind of pinpoint the fact that like she's not supposed to be seen in a positive light. Of course, everyone ends up feeling sympathy for her, especially, God, we'll get into it. I think everyone ends up feeling sympathy for her, but I don't think she's supposed to be seen in a positive light. She is a villain, like a very cold, brutal villain. I would probably say sociopathic because, you know, there's some bad behaviors, but one of the differences between psychopath and sociopath is that sociopaths can still feel guilt, and Pearl definitely feels guilt. Like, she feels horrible for what she's done. It pains me to say this. It pains me to say this. Why are you focusing back there and not on me? Hello? Sorry if it was out of focus for a little bit. I fixed it. Pearl really does. It pains me to say this, and people are gonna be mad. That's fine. But she does have some characteristics where she is selfish, she is careless, and she's a little bit narcissistic. We all have some narcissism, but damn, Pearl has some narcissism. There are foreshadowing events, like, leading up to her rejection that tell the audience that, like, hey, Pearl's not gonna make it. She's not gonna get the part. Like, you can tell that from these events leading up to it. And I think the most in-your-face one is literally right before Pearl auditions. Literally right before Pearl auditions, Mitzi says this.
Can't say I'm too saddened for her. Some people just think they're God's gift, you know. But they always get what's coming to them eventually. They always get what's coming to them eventually.
Oh, hello? Hello? Especially to say that directly to Pearl before she, like, kind of gets... Is it harsh to say get what's coming to her? It sounds shitty, but she could have just abandoned her family. Like, she didn't have to kill him. But, like, what Mitzi says about somebody being God's gift. I'm sorry, have we not seen that from Pearl this entire movie? Like, even when we are introduced to her, she thinks that her shit doesn't stink and that she is God's gift. She was not put on this earth to be normal.
I'm special. Mama's gonna feel real stupid when she finds out, won't she?
Then we can both go to the dance audition. Your husband is gone, so is mine. Why should we be saddled with caring for them or the work of this farm? What about us getting what we want? You are not better than me. Yes, I am!
It has to be me.
I don't think you meant to say that out loud, Pearl. Well, if it's not me, then I hope it's you. Right?
It has to be me. But that was the best dancing I've ever done.
And we don't even see Pearl before the audition. I noticed we don't see Pearl dance very often before the audition. So, like, besides the little, like, go around with the scarecrow and just twirling, we don't know Pearl's dancing ability. She said she has to rehearse, but we never see her rehearse. But she is so confident that she is going to get this part. Like, there's no other option. Obviously, I'm gonna get it. She's so cocky about it almost that she has packed her bags ready to go as soon as they say yes. There's no guarantee they're gonna say yes. And also, she just killed her entire family on the bank that they're saying yes, and she's never gonna see him again anyway. And then when she gets rejected, the first time I watched this, I only noticed the mother on the judge's bench. But the second time is when I noticed that it's not just the mom. The judges turn into all 4 people that she's fucked over so far. They're literally haunting her. They are haunting her at her big failure in her face. You fucked up. And she realizes that she fucks up. And there is this big focus on an attempt to fix things.
I need to clean this up. All of it. I need to make things right before you see me again.
And I said narcissist. I probably showed clips showing how I think this. I don't like throwing it around too much because I think it's overused and not always used appropriately. Like, who knows if I think I used it appropriately, but who knows? Somebody might tell me that I'm wrong, you know? But I especially also don't like to diagnose characters with anything. I mentioned Pearl having maybe sociopathic tendencies, but it's a fictional, we can't diagnose a fictional character. But, you know, Pearl, she displays a lot of narcissistic characteristics, like, throughout the whole thing. And we all have a little bit of narcissism, but hers is so out the wazoo that she's killing her family because she knows in her head, I'm gonna go dance. They're gonna pick me, there's no question about it, no doubt in my mind. I'm the only option. I know I'm getting out of here for a fact, because I know for a fact I wasn't meant to be here. And I'm so interested to see, because obviously I don't know anything about X, so I'm so interested to see what Pearl's life does end up like. Like, don't tell me. I want to find out for myself. But I'm now so interested to see, like, does Pearl actually, like, try to do more? Does she take that one failure as a sign to stay forever as a farm girl? Which is kind of, that would be horrible if that's actually what it is. That would be horrible. Because then she just did all of that for nothing. And so you're telling me she didn't try again ever and she just accepted that fate? Now, I do have here a little section of a old Hollywood movie that kind of got me thinking about Pearl and Ruth's relationship to one another. I noticed there was something familiar about the relationship between Ruth and Pearl. And it took me a while to really put my finger on it. But on the second rewatch, when I was taking, like, more detailed notes, I think I got it. And I don't know how many people are going to know what I'm talking about. Mildred and Vita, from the 1945 film Mildred Pierce, directed by Michael Cortez. Is that how it's pronounced? Cortez? And it stars one of my favorite actresses ever, Joan Crawford. And just some of the interactions between Pearl and Ruth throughout Pearl remind me of some of the interactions going on between Vita and Mildred. And listen, because so much of Pearl is focused on, like, old Hollywood aesthetics, I was so thrilled to be able to have an old Hollywood example that wasn't just Wizard of Oz, because that's obviously the most, like, it's very obviously very Wizard of Oz in its music and its coloring, Technicolor. It's obviously somewhat inspired by Wizard of Oz, especially because Pearl, there were moments where she reminded me of Dorothy. Anyway, and I know other people have talked about what happened to Baby Jane, and I thought about that too the first time I was watching it, but I wouldn't say that, because then you would have to consider, like, Sunset Boulevard, and both Sunset Boulevard and What Happened to Baby Jane are narratives about people who used to be famous and are now struggling or coping with the fact that they no longer have that fame. Pearl's story is about wanting to have fame. But Baby Jane and Norma Desmond from Sunset Boulevard, they've already had fame. Their horror is the struggle now not being famous. Does that make sense? So, like, I don't see that parallel between Baby Jane and Pearl. I don't see it, because I can see what people are getting at. I'm not convinced.
Please, Lord.
But we're not talking about any of those. We are going to be talking about Mildred Pierce. In Mildred Pierce, Vita is Mildred's eldest daughter, who is incredibly ungrateful for the life they have and the work that her mother does to get Vita anything she wants. Vita has dreams of riches and fame, not unlike Pearl, but she's more focused on, I think, piano and singing and not dancing.
In that hazy, lazy-like kind of crazy, like South America way.
And she's also constantly reminding her waitress mother how she's beneath her and she doesn't want to end up like her.
Your uniform?
Yes, I'm waiting tables in a downtown restaurant.
My mother, a waitress. Aren't the pies bad enough? Did you have to degrade us?
Vita, don't talk like that.
I'm really not surprised. You've never spoken of your people, who you came from.
All right, Vita, from now on, things are going to be different.
I'll say they're going to be different. Why do you think I went to all this trouble? Why do you think I want money so badly?
All right, why?
With this money, I can get away from you.
Vita.
From you and your chickens and your pies and your kitchens and everything that smells of grease. I can get away from this shack with its cheap furniture, and this town and its dollar days, and its women that wear uniforms, and its men that wear overalls.
Vita, I think I'm really seeing you for the first time in my life, and you're cheap and horrible.
Now, I see quite a few similarities, like maybe ideologically between Pearl and Vita. However, I was also getting clips of Mildred Pierce to use for this, and Vita is just like, they have similarities, but Vita is disgusting. Like, Vita has absolutely no redeemable qualities to her. Pearl, you can tell, at least has good intentions. Like, Pearl just wants to be loved. Vita is a piece of fucking shit. She is despicable and calculated and malicious. But still, there are still a few, like, similarities between them. Like, how they think of their mother, wanting to get out of the place they're born into, and thinking that they're meant for something greater than what their family has to offer. And just, like, this big focus on wanting to get away from the mother. And, spoilers for this film from 1945. But I feel like I should put a spoiler warning, because who has seen, put a comment if you've seen Mildred Pierce. I feel like it's not a movie a lot of people have seen unless you're really into movies, like moi. Let me be frank, the only reason I know it exists is because Joan Crawford is in it. So, skip to, like, this time if you don't want, like, the biggest spoiler for Mildred Pierce. Like, I'm literally going to tell you the ending, and it's a twist ending. So, skip to that time. This is giving you time. But another big similarity between Vita and Pearl, besides the little bit of narcissism. Vita has a whole lot of narcissism, though. And wanting to get away and believing that they deserve better things. Another big similarity between Pearl and Vita is that Vita also kills somebody. Vita is also a killer. Vita is a spoiled brat. In a few places in my script, I have Pearl, not very seriously, kind of jokingly, calling her a spoiled brat. And I've decided, like, not to use that term a whole lot throughout anymore, now that, like, I'm recording it. Because I just don't, she isn't a spoiled brat. But there are behaviors and things that she does and says that reminds me a whole lot of the old Hollywood spoiled brat trope, like Vita. Pearl is just, without a doubt, the bad guy, and she's, as I said, a very cold villain, and yet you still feel bad for her. I know I just, like, kind of dissected and maybe ragged on her character a little bit, but I don't hate Pearl as a character. She is now one of my favorite characters. I think she was incredible. She was scary, but you sympathized with her. I just think Pearl is one of those films where you feel bad for everyone that's involved. Like, nobody really got what they deserved, you know? The father didn't deserve that. Mitzi didn't deserve that. I don't think the projectionist deserved that. I don't think the mother deserved that. And Pearl, she's just, yeah, she has a hard time after everyone dies. She really regrets.
I hurt them so they too might know what it feels like to suffer, but poor Daddy didn't deserve that. I wish I hadn't done what I did. Mama meant well. She had a hard life.
It seems like she has a whole lot of regret over everything she just did. I know I kind of ragged on her being selfish and careless and, you know, very self-serving, but There was nothing wrong with her wanting to follow her dreams. There was nothing wrong with her having a dream. Like, everyone has dreams. And also, the desire of wanting to better your life or wanting something greater, I think, is something that a lot of people can resonate with. And then when she goes on to talk about all she wanted was to feel love. Like, is that not the most human desire? Is just love? Oh. I won't say everyone, but I think most people, they get it. They get it. However, there is something very clearly wrong with her. It seems like maybe there was something wrong. Stop focusing back there. Focus on me. It seems like there was something wrong with her before the Fluid War, because she talks about how she needed to hide who she truly was to get Howard to marry her.
I made sure to never let you see who I really was. Worked like a charm, too.
So she's been like this the whole time. I think maybe just the isolation of quarantine quickened or worsened how bad it really was. And also, I want to talk about just briefly talk about the irony that everyone she killed are people who love her. She talks about this desire of just wanting to be loved, but everyone she killed are people that love her. You could argue whether the mom loves her or not because of some of the things the mom said in her monologue. I get that. I guess you could argue that they became people who are just afraid of her, didn't love her. Sure, make that argument. I just think it's ironic that everyone who was in her life, who had some kind of love towards her, she killed. I feel bad for her though, because once it's time to talk about her monologue, her incredible monologue, you can tell in her monologue, she doesn't want to be the way she is. She doesn't want to be this way. You know, like when she talks about hurting small animals, it just feels good, but she wishes it didn't, but it does. It feels good. She starts wishing that she was normal and like everyone else, and it becomes clear that just whatever is happening to her, how her condition is like worsening, it's something that's uncontrollable and it's destroying her life. Because again, there's this emphasis, I have to fix things before Howard gets home, which includes setting a table with your corpse parents and going through there's mold on that food, so who knows how much time passed between us seeing her set that table and Howard coming home. Okay, how long was she playing house with these corpses, trying to pretend that like life was how it used to be? Man, she suffers, but her suffering is very like internal. And I think especially this fourth rewatching, I saw it and I was just like, man, she just changes into an entirely different person almost. Like, there were signs of it always being there, but it just gets worse. It snowballs. There were a few moments of her monologue that really tugged at my heartstrings. Primarily when she starts off with saying that she feels like everyone else has something that there are dogs barking outside. Jesus Christ. She feels like there's something that everybody else has that she's missing to make her normal. I get that. And when she started on the talk of wanting to be like the pretty girls, when she started the talk that all she ever wanted was just to feel loved. She just wants love. That's the moment that I started crying.
I want what they have so badly. To be perfect. To be loved from as many people as possible to make up for all my time spent suffering.
I said it already. That's the most human desire. Everyone knows that desperate urge to be loved. Whether they recognize it as that or not, there's always that desperate urge to be loved, that emptiness when it isn't filled. And here is one of the eeriest, creepiest fucking horror movies that I have seen in quite a while. And it's making me cry and feel bad for its villain. I cried for Pearl, man. It's been a while since I cried during a movie. And I am a crier. But I've never cried during a horror movie. Especially one that is so effectively eerie and scary as Pearl. Pearl is a bad guy that you really wish wasn't a bad guy. But for the entertainment purposes, it's nice to see her as the bad guy because she is probably one of the most chilling slashers I have seen in a long time. Yes, more chilling than Art the Clown. Fight me about it. And the reason I believe that is because it feels very psychological and real. Like, what Pearl is experiencing is the same thing now, not every mentally ill person, not saying that, but Pearl is experiencing the same thing that thousands of mentally ill people, whether they know they are or not, are experiencing all over the world. Hey guys, there are people who are mentally ill like Pearl and they don't know that they don't have the self-reflection to realize that they are. We live in a world where people like Pearl do exist. Like, Pearl could be your neighbor. And one day, your neighbor might snap the same way Pearl does. There might be something to make your neighbor snap the way Pearl does. And Pearl had some very unjustified kills. Mitzi's the one that I'm the angriest about. Man, you can look at all the creature features and body horror, but humans are they're the scariest creatures of all, honestly. Pearl isn't focused on like torture porn or something shocking to get a reaction out of the audience. I'm not knocking torture porn, it's one of my favorite genres. It's just it's scary because it's more focused on reality. And Pearl's suffering in the movie, it's not something like visually seen. And we get hints of it, but her monologue really helps us have a full understanding of what the suffering is. And it's just whatever this mental problem she has is. I don't know. Sometimes people are just born that way. Other times it comes through nurturing. If you want my opinion, from what I've seen of the movie, how Pearl describes her desires, the form of abuse I think Pearl has gone through is neglect. And the reason I say that is because it's her entire focus is wanting everyone to love her. She wants attention. She wants love. When she talks about dancing, I know I've mentioned fame, but she really doesn't talk about the fame. She talks about having people that love her. And usually when somebody has like a dream or a desire like that, it's because they've received neglect growing up. She didn't receive enough like attention emotionally or like socially or whatever you want to say. However, she was neglected somehow. I think before I was just talking about how I wasn't as familiar with like an abuse theory. It finally came to my head. I was talking about trauma theory. Not very familiar with it. I don't know. It didn't catch in my head very much every time that I learned it. But that is probably something that somebody would use here. And somebody who is more knowledgeable about it has probably talked about it. So what I assume, and I think it makes sense too, because it seems probably even before the Fluin War that the mother and father was very farm focused. And so they probably didn't give Pearl much attention. She was probably trying to find attention elsewhere. That could have bred the like killing small animals thing. Or again, she could have just been born like that too. Like, I don't know. Some people are just born like that. But oftentimes one of the main causes is neglect. You're not talking to her. You're not doing things with her. You're telling her to go away. I resonate with that. And I think there are a lot of people who probably resonate with that. Like, damn, I empathize with how that lack of attention hurts people later in life and just how hollow it can be. My God, you guys, I have so many more thoughts and notes about this film. Like, I have so much shit about... I feel like this is not gonna be the last time I talk about Pearl. I feel like there's potential that I could return to Pearl with more things to say in a separate video. But not so soon. I like watching different things. I don't want to be known for just discussing the X franchise. But the length of my script already, I don't think there's time to really go in depth of the other things that I want to discuss, like how we don't know if Pearl is a reliable narrator. Yo. So there are a lot of things, a lot of other thoughts and beliefs that I have that just have to go unsaid because I don't want to keep you here forever. I'm sure maybe some of you would love to stay here forever, but I'm not going to keep you here forever. So overall, Pearl is fantastic. And especially that fourth time watching it last night, the mom's fucking monologue. Damn, I love that monologue. That is such a... that's a good ass monologue. I fucking love it so much. And I loved the whole movie so much. I feel like I genuinely don't have any criticisms. Like, I don't have anything negative to say about this movie. Low-key perfect. I loved that the way the film opens is very similar to the way a play might open, and it keeps small details of theater and old Hollywood prominent in the aesthetic throughout. And listen, you don't need me to tell you that this is a gorgeous film. You can see it and know this is a gorgeous film. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And in that beauty, Pearl has been one of the most terrifying slashers I've ever seen. And watching her slowly become more insane and more violent is such a treat. And there's this interaction that she has with Mitzi that just gave me goosebumps, where her voice suddenly goes low.
Hope you can come see this show sometime.
You guys get everything you want.
Man, when she's dealing with Mitzi, it's just like Pearl is completely gone. It feels like she turns into somebody else. And don't talk to me about those ending credits. Holy shit. I had seen the ending credits stare before, but then getting to watch it after seeing the whole rest of the movie just has a completely different impact to it. Those ending credits gave me goosebumps. Like, when every time I watch the end credits, Mia Goth's stare gives me goosebumps. It's incredible. It's eerie. It's just the perfect ending. Like Howard coming home, the scene that he walks into, Mia Goth's stare after her final line. It's just, man, that is a perfect ending. And the credits are so eerie. Before I share what tier I'm gonna list Pearl as, I do want to share, I think this has the potential to be in the S tier category for me. I don't think I've put anything in S tier yet besides Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because that's my favorite film of all time. Oh, and I put Willy's Wonderland in S tier in the third episode of Fool's Soapbox that I did. I made the decision, I've seen it enough, and I stick by that. It is S tier. I was thinking more like on my blog. I don't think I ever put anything in S tier. And I take labeling something as S tier very seriously. Like, that is the cream of the crop to me. Like, God's movies. Because I've just watched Pearl and I'm very excited and thrilled about it right now, I don't want that to judge that kind of scoring. I want to sit with it just a little bit longer, maybe a year longer, where I rewatch it a few more times. I get to think about it more, I get to sit with it more, let that love and excitement kind of dissipate as I watch it more, so that I know that I'm just not like crazy for it in the moment, and that is what's judging that high of a tier. So because of that, I'm gonna refrain from putting Pearl in S tier so far. So my official rating for Pearl is A tier. Next highest to S. I really want to fucking make it S tier. That is a powerful movie. It's good. It's incredible. It's so well done. But I have to sit with it a little bit longer before I make that decision. So even though my initial interpretation of this movie just didn't align with everyone else's, I was still fucking obsessed with this film. Like, it is such a work of art. And every person that I know who hasn't seen it yet, I want to go up to them and fucking shake them and be like, you go watch Pearl. But before I watched Pearl, I was so nervous that I wasn't gonna like it. Because here's the thing, usually movies like that get like overhyped, I watch it and I'm immediately disappointed. It's usually just an overhype. Movies that are popular like Pearl was, I watch them and I'm disappointed. So I am so happy that Pearl exceeded my expectations and that it's actually a good ass film. I'm so happy that everyone's hype is valid. Because sometimes it's not. Like, listen, the big one for me when I realized I had a different taste in movies than everyone else is with Human Centipede. And I was so excited to watch that. And I was so disappointed because it was so fucking boring and I did not care. That was when I realized I need to start taking people's hype over a horror movie very lightly, okay? I have trust issues. I feel like I've been posting too many positive reviews in a row, so the next one, I'm probably gonna find a movie that actually looks bad. Like, I'm gonna try and find something that looks horrible to me. We need to get a movie that we can fucking go ham on, my guy. Go in, punch down. So, next time I post a review, it's probably going to be on a bad movie. Don't know what yet. If you stay till the end, that probably means that you like to hear me talk. Thank you very much. I'm very flattered. But I wanted to state, and I'll put it on my community tabs as well for anyone who misses this part, but I wanted to state that next week I might not be posting anything. I'm going to be on vacation. And on vacation, I'm not really going to have privacy. So I'm not gonna have privacy or time to watch a movie like 3 to 4 times, first of all, to watch the movie, write a script, record the script, I screen record the movie, the clips that I need, and then edit a movie. Like, it's a full, for me right now, it's a full week-long process that gets tied in with like other things that I do in my life. It really takes like a full week for me to do it. And on vacation, I'm not gonna have that kind of privacy. My thoughts, I fucking hate like missing a week. I would like to try and see Terrifier 3 and maybe upload something that's short, like an initial thoughts of it, but I can't make any promises. But with Terrifier 3, I wanted to put it out here right now before I go see it. I think the beginning of the movie is going to be so bad. I think art kills a kid. I think that's why people are walking out of the theater and why Hollywood places want to pick it up. Like, yeah, Hollywood has killed kids before, but they probably haven't killed kids the way that Art the Clown would kill a kid. That's my call. I'm willing to put money on it, that's what the opening scene is. It was already teased in the trailer. Thank you so much for being here and giving me your time. You know, I know this is probably like a 30 to 40 minute thing, and if you watched all this way, man, I really appreciate you giving me your time and your attendance and being here. Thank you. It just means the world to me because I worked really hard on, well, yeah, I do work hard on these. I'm not gonna downput my own work. If you stayed until the end of the video, consider putting an X emoji in the comments and telling me something that you liked about Pearl. How about like what your favorite moment was? Because I think mine was that final dinner shot where she has the corpse parents and herself at a table full of rotten food. Man, I want to get that shit framed. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a like before you leave. And if you dislike, that's okay too. You can dislike because YouTube considers it all engagement, so I guess it's fine. If you would like to hear me talk about more horror movies, consider hitting that subscribe button. Let me even sweeten the offer for you. Let me sweeten the offer. Momo says that you should subscribe and hit that bell notification so you can be notified when I have a next upload. Mwah. Me and my Momo are just so appreciative of people who have been supporting the channel so far. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you being here. Okay, you can go back to your window. I'm sorry. Anyway, just thank you again so much to my subscribers. Literally, creators are nothing without their audience, so I just appreciate everyone who stays and watches. Be safe out there, and I hope you have a good night. I'll see you in the next one.